Y'all, week 18 is upon us, and it's going to be a good one. We have still 2 playoff spots yet to be determined, but also, more importantly, in the NFC and AFC, we have yet to figure out who's going to get that number 1 seeding. Now, on Saturday, there's 2 games, and this is all about the NFC. Early in the afternoon, it's going to be the Carolina Panthers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is kind of an interesting situation in that there could be a 3-way tie at 8-9 for that division. Now, the Falcons, if they win, they'll be 8-9, but they're already excluded from the playoffs, so we're not going to really worry about that. But if the Panthers win on Saturday afternoon, they win the NFC South title, and they also make it into the playoffs at the number 4 spot. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they need to win that game against the Carolina Panthers, but to actually make it into the playoffs, they will need a little bit of help. They will need the Atlanta Falcons to lose to the New Orleans Saints. It's just an interesting scenario that if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win, they'll be 8-9. The Panthers will be 8-9. And if the Atlanta Falcons win, they'll be 8-9 as well. That means we're going to have a playoff team that has a losing record at 8-9, a division winning record at that. Now, moving to the Saturday night game, that's a huge one. It's going to be the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Not only is this game for the NFC West crown, but it also determines the number 1 seeding in the NFC. So whichever one of these 2 teams wins, Seattle or San Francisco, they win the NFC West title, but they also get the number 1 NFC spot, and that means they get home field advantage throughout the playoffs and, of course, that coveted first round bye. Now, moving on to Sunday, there's a bit more to unpack, and Sunday is going to be all about the AFC. There are still 3 teams fighting for that number 1 seed in the AFC, which, of course, means that first round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. First, it's the Denver Broncos. They're taking on the LA Chargers, and it's plain and simple. If they win, they get that number 1 spot. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, if they end up losing to the Chargers, they still have an opportunity to get that number 1 seeding if New England loses to Miami and Jacksonville loses to Tennessee. The next best opportunity to win that number 1 seeding in the AFC is going to be the New England Patriots. They're taking on the Miami Dolphins. Now, they, of course, need to win that game against the Miami Dolphins, but they will also need the Denver Broncos to lose to the Los Angeles Chargers. Those are your 2 best opportunities to get that number 1 seed in the AFC. But there is still a third team that has an outside chance of winning that number 1 seed in the AFC. That's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, to achieve this, here's what needs to happen. They are taking on the Tennessee Titans. So, of course, they need to beat the Tennessee Titans, but also Denver would, of course, need to lose to the Los Angeles Chargers. And that second best option, the New England Patriots, would also need to lose them to the Miami Dolphins. So if those 3 things happens, the Jaguars beating the Titans, Denver losing to the Chargers, and New England losing to Miami, then that would mean the Jacksonville Jaguars get that number 1 spot in the AFC. Now, along with that, the Jacksonville Jaguars are also fighting for the AFC South title, the other team being the Houston Texans. The Jaguars, of course, if they get that win and Houston loses its game against Indianapolis, the Jaguars get that AFC South title. Conversely, of course, the Houston Texans, they'll be taking on the Indianapolis Colts. If they get the win and the Jaguars lose to the Indianapolis Colts, then the Houston Texans get the AFC South title. Now, of course, they've saved the best for last, as the Sunday night game determines who gets that final AFC playoff spot, as well as the team that wins the AFC North title, as it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Baltimore Ravens. It's plain and simple. Whichever one of those 2 teams wins that game, they are in the playoffs, and they get the AFC North title. Now, let's not forget about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to be going at it a little shorthanded, as their star wide receiver, DK Metcalf, was suspended the last 2 games of the season due to an unnecessary altercation with the fan. This was against the Detroit Lions, where he decided to go over, reach up, and grab a fan by his shirt and essentially punch him in the face. Regardless, it's going to be an interesting matchup. The Baltimore Ravens always bring against the Pittsburgh Steelers and vice versa, so I expect a lot of good hits and a close game. After Sunday night, we'll know exactly what the playoff brackets look like for the NFL and who's playing who and when they're playing.